Welcome to the webinar today. My name is Manish Agarwal. I've been a corporate executive for the last 24 years, and now I operate as an independent financial advisor, helping people with their financial investments and with their insurance needs. I've been associated with Heartfulness for the last 30 odd years. And today we are going to talk about this topic, which is minimalism and sustainability. Now, the current crisis that we are experiencing is not something that we could have possibly avoided. Having said so, in the din of the current crisis, what is getting lost are far more serious issues around minimalism and sustainability, and environment, which we'll have an opportunity to talk today with two of our very outstanding panelists. So we have Mrs. Pratima Joshi, who is the co-founder and executive director of Shelter Associates. Pratima is one of the very few visionaries who recognize the issues around provision of safe access to basic services. She's a recipient of the Aga Khan Scholarship and an expert in building design for developing countries. Only Indian to receive the Google Earth Hero Award, and has been identified by the BBC as a leading slum architect of India. In the last 5 years, she has won over 13 awards and has pioneered her approach by using concepts like multi-stakeholder consultation, user-centric design, and participative governance. Our next panelist is Gangadhar Reddy, also popularly called Ganges. He's the CEO and co-founder of BlueDrop Environment Private Limited. In professional circles, he's more popularly called Ganges, and his expertise is in the area of environmental sustainability. A mechanical engineer by profession and education, he has over 20 years of industry experience with over a decade overseas in the area of IT. He is passionate about the environment and believes in the best practices for eco-friendly human existence. He chose to get into wastewater treatment to give water a second life. He's also active in community building through education, training on water-related subjects, and providing solutions to various industries. So my first question is directed to Ms. Pratima Joshi. How has this pandemic affected you at a personal level?
Thank you, Manish. I would also like to add that I have been a heartfulness practitioner for the last 35 years. Okay, so coming to your question, there are two things that strike me immediately. One is that in the last 6 weeks, we have required so little to live reasonably well. And the second is that, the true value of human connection is something that I've discovered in these last few weeks. But at a broader level, I think there's a message from nature which is very loud and clear to all of us. I think what nature is trying to tell us is that human beings are really quite insignificant in this whole ecological chain. This tiny virus has literally brought the entire world to a standstill the last 7-8 weeks. And in this time, nature has started healing itself. In Pune, which is, I think, one of the most polluted cities in India, the quality of air has just dramatically altered. I'm sure the animal kingdom is breathing a sigh of relief that we are off their terrain. So I wonder, if the human race were to become extinct, will anything suffer? I don't think so. I think nature would just flourish. What we have stopped understanding, and I think that's an extremely important lesson that we all need to now imbibe, is that ecology is the basis of our existence. And this is something that we now need to start bringing into our lives when we go back, I hope, to a new normal. We've been far too consumeristic in our outlook. We've even looked at nature as a commodity. I think The first thing they look at trees, they say, oh, wood, maybe I can make my, next piece of furniture can come from there. What we've forgotten is that the tree is such a phenomenal life. What it is exhaling is what I'm inhaling all the time. The other thing that also has come as a bit of a surprise to me, because I come from an old school of thought where I believe that, you must go to work on time, you must log in your hours and, things like that. But the last 6 weeks, my team and I, we've been working from home and we've been doing pretty well. So I think in a way it has demolished my own notion that, working from home would probably reduce efficiency. That hasn't happened. On the contrary, I'm kind of seriously contemplating if we should have a rotational policy of attendance now that should get institutionalized in our own organization, so that, it would be a relief to so many people where they would not have to travel so much to work, which would save a lot of time and, of course, fuel and time that can be really put to so much better use.
So thanks, Pratima, for your insights. I was just reading a social media post where nature is saying that as we have gone into a lockdown, the earth and the air and water, they're all doing fine. And what nature is telling humans is that when you come back as my guests, not as my masters. And probably this is something that as human race, we need to contemplate on if we really want to exist on earth in peaceful harmony with other elements of nature. So what are your thoughts, Pratima, on sustainable living?
We are talking about sustainable living. I think there are multitudes of human beings who don't have even the minimal sustainable living right now on this planet. I'm a social entrepreneur, an architect by training, and have been working in the urban sector for the last 27 years, to be more precise, in slums, where we've tried to facilitate, social housing and delivery of essential services like, say, toilets, water, solid waste management, electricity, etc. To these families who are living in communities and who are very, very often deprived of some of these most basic necessities which I've just mentioned. To me, sustainability and inclusiveness are two sides of the same coin. Unless you have an inclusive approach, you cannot achieve any sustainability. Most of us live in urban cities. I live in a city called Pune, which is about 150 kilometers from Mumbai. I'm sure everybody has heard of Mumbai. And in both these cities, there are degraded areas that we call slums and shanties that are spread across the city, which shelter anywhere between 30 to 60% of our total population. That's a large number. And for those viewers who are not Indians, I would like to also clarify that the poor contribute tremendously through an informal economy to the city. I think the cities would collapse if we did not have them. Most of the middle and upper middle class families rely on a day-to-day basis on their services. We have people who come and help us out. We have the gardeners, milkmen, everybody who mostly come from these settlements. And often slums lack the most basic services like access to safe sanitation and water. You and I take a home toilet for granted. Our data across cities has shown us that over 70% of the families residing in slums do not even have access to a home toilet. They have to rely on very dirty community toilets or defecate in the open. So when we talk about minimalism, I'm always, aghast and appalled that even the most minimal services like, say, sanitation has not reached majority of the poor in our cities. And especially in this pandemic, they've become even more vulnerable because they are still being forced to use, common facilities which are terribly maintained. So, all this stems from some amount of apathy which is displayed by us and the government over the years. The government is not very willing to engage with the poor, is not willing to understand how they are spread across the city, you know, work on data which would give them a good insight into what kind of infrastructure facilities exist, what are the gaps in the delivery of the most essential services that they need to plug. And most of them have very, very limited data sets which are not usable on the ground. So today when this pandemic has hit us, the biggest worry that is facing the cities is how do we track, how do we monitor, how do we reach out with all these very essential medical services to those who are affected in the slum in a timely manner so that we can contain this pandemic. We have no data to help them navigate to those specific houses. So in a way, this has been an eye-opener. All these years, we've gotten away by wishing away the existence of the poor, considering them as an eyesore, you know, sort of sweeping this entire problem under the carpet. But you know, there's a saying that what you hate or what you ignore finally manages to hold you. And now this is exactly what is staring at them in their face. Tell me, one of the major, you know, tenets of overcoming coronavirus is social distancing, right? How can you even talk of social distancing in slums where most families are living in tiny tenements which are probably less than 15 square meters in area? There's just no way. And there are 6 or 7 members in a 150 square feet house. What kind of social distancing can they practice? So they don't even have a minimal quality of living. The reason why I'm trying to highlight this is that as citizens, and as citizens of a democratic government, I think, you know, we have to become aware that we are connected to everyone living in the city. The health of the city depends on the well-being of every individual. So it is our duty really to be able to reach out. I just want to ask a very small question to some of the viewers. How many of us even take the trouble of understanding the kind of conditions that our maids and all these people who are serving us on a day-to-day basis live in? Do we make that effort to try and mitigate their problems? Most people would like to believe that, you know, most of us are waiting for someone else to make the change. Or we conveniently keep blaming the government for everything that goes wrong. But it is we who elect the government. Majority countries in the world are democracies, luckily. I think it's about high time that as individuals, we start engaging with issues that concern at least our immediate neighborhood. And my take is, Manish, that the next 10, 15 years are going to be extremely critical for us because we have reached a kind of a tipping point in the degradation of our ecology. If we don't start looking at this very, very seriously, if we don't start focusing on our forests, our water bodies, our soil, our agriculture, we are certainly heading towards a disastrous future where I think in the years to come, we won't be able to give even a very, very minimal quality of life for our future generation. And that is what really, is the burning question. And I think if we want to move towards a sustainable way of living, then this is the time that we really need to start thinking on how we can change and change it quickly over the next 10, 15 years, how we can, turn around the situation.
Thanks, Pratima, for your insights. And indeed, I think the way we look at people in the slums today is more as a drain on the resources of a city, whereas perhaps we need to look at them as people who are micro entrepreneurs who are busy with getting out of themselves out and their families out of poverty. I turn to you, Ganges, now, and you are in the sustainability space and you deal with matters of water. What's your take on the current crisis and what's on your mind about the future of our people, communities, and societies at large?
Thank you, Manish. It's been great listening to Pratima. What she spoke set me to thinking because we are all connected. It is a known thing that people would have said a fluttering butterfly somewhere in South America can cause a tsunami somewhere in Philippines. We have known the fact. I watched a brief documentary, not a documentary, a brief film made. It's hardly a 4 minutes. It shows how we are connected intimately, the animals, the nature, the people across the globe in various forms, and it pulls out so many scientific facts. Forget about this 4-minute video. We have seen somewhere Wuhan, and now in Hyderabad, sitting in home for 8 weeks. We are connected. And then in these times, probably these things have to come to surface, what Pratima is speaking about, that everything has to be taken into account if we have to be a sustainable society. We can be a sustainable society covering one part of life, leaving the other part of life just behind. Some of us are just ignorant. Some of us probably do not have time to even look into these things because of our busy lives. And all of us are struggling somewhere to get through our life and take care of what we have already on plate. And there are so many other things outside. Glad that we got this time to think, reconnect, and rekindle certain energies that we can pour or spare towards things that didn't exist in our life. These lockdown times have taught us many things. Personally for me, and when I hear across forums, read the news, and a lot of these webinars people are talking about, all of us are saying, seeing and saying, sharing those things, that we started to live with minimal things. When I say minimal things, I literally mean it that some of us have started to eat only twice a day, while we were eating thrice a day earlier. And then the kind of foods that we cook, very limited. And today it doesn't matter what food is coming on the table, anything is fine. So we have gone from a lavish paneer pizza lifestyle to anything is fine, chalega. Food is on the table, that's good. We're getting some groceries, great. And not only that, all of us end up in buying something, end up in malls, shopping, doing this, doing that. All these activities suddenly vanished. And we seem to be still fine. Probably we may not be fine if we have to live like this for 4 years, 3 years, or even a year. But to the majority of the extent, all of us have learned that it is possible to simplify, to minimize, and live happily yet. This is giving us more time to do other things. Well, you asked me that, I'm into water. What do I see? Yes, I'm into water. The water has multiple avenues to look at. There is drinking water supply. There is municipal water supply. I am on the back end of this water after the water is consumed when it becomes wastewater. Pratima touched upon these water bodies. I do see a lot of it. What happens after we merrily use the water in households? It turns into wastewater. Every person is an average using about 135 liters where the water is available, and 80% of it goes as wastewater into the drains. And communities do, some of them actually store this water, treat this water, and then bring it back. Some are not even aware. And wherever we are not capturing this water is going down the nalas or municipal drains, ending up in ponds, lakes, and rivers. And we see what is happening to these water bodies. Pollution, heavy duty pollution, dengue deaths, fish dying. It's not just domestic water. Of course, there is industrial waters and other pollutions. So why I bring this subject of water pollution is that we're talking about ecosystem. And as individuals, with the level of ignorance we are showing towards nature, we, without knowing, actually killing our own platform. And governments do not have enough money to take care of everything. At individual level, all of us have some level of responsibility that we have to demonstrate, not waiting for somebody to come and fix it. Even the amount of water, I say, we understand things when it relates to money. Is it 100 rupees? Is it 80 rupees? I go for 80 rupees. For the same quality, I go for a lesser price. We see these things very easily. We can make decisions very easily. But things that we don't understand, we tend to ignore. It's going to come very costly. The corona has put us homes for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. If this is a crisis that we never anticipated and has come sat in front of our eyes, what about those crises that people have been warning us for, I would say, decades, and the warning alarm bells have gone up now on other areas related to natural resources, the water, the electricity, and then other things that we are extracting from nature. We'll talk more about it as the session proceeds, but I see one thing for sure. We survived corona. It's a bold statement to say we survived. We still are going through it, but I'm sure we'll survive this. But there are some crises that are going to hit us and they won't let us survive. Imagine there is no water for a week. If lockdown happens on water, what happens to our lives? What do you think, Manish? What will happen if the municipal corporations stop supplying water for weekdays?
I mean, the crisis will be much bigger than a corona crisis.
We'll forget corona. Corona will look very small.
That's right. So thanks, Ganges, for your insights, and especially about our interconnectedness, which is essentially a very Vedantic principle there, which tells us that all creation is connected, interconnected through a certain vibratory process. And this interconnection is very clearly being brought out through this crisis. So Ganges, in terms of the individuals or viewers who are viewing our program, what are your thoughts on minimalism in the context of water resources?
It's a very profound question, and it's a vast subject. Of course, we are talking about water. Your question is specific to water, but I would probably touch a holistic view of water and other essential resources. As I was mentioning that we survived this corona, we survived this 2 months lockdown because there are certain essential things that really did not stop. They got minimalized. For example, electricity is still on. I didn't lose power for more than a couple of hours in this whole 2 months time. So I was okay. There was supply of water. There were, the internet is running. And the community that I live in, the waste is being picked up every day. Had the waste not been picked up for a month, by now it would have been a disaster. If the electricity did not, was not provided as much as it is today, I don't know what we would have done. Thank God the internet is on, so we could do all these things and still keep ourselves busy in the midst of this crisis. So when it comes to this minimalism on water, there are reasons why we have to look at minimalism, not just on water. Well, a few minutes we'll just work on the water, then we'll go to the other things. It's become a hackneyed expression that conserve water. Mahatma Gandhi said conserve water probably 70, 80 years ago, and probably more than that. So even today we are talking about conserving water. Yes, it's a moral responsibility of each one of us to conserve water, because about 1 billion people do not have access to drinking water, safe drinking water. And even in the cities that, I live in Hyderabad. So even in Hyderabad, we have known cases where there are bore wells that are running at 2,000 feet, 2,500 feet. And it's a struggle. And corporations cannot provide water everywhere. And the more and more we extract water from the earth, Mother Earth, there will be a doomsday for sure. So it's on us that, we now, whatever we have heard, probably we have to bring it in action. Simple things to do. People may think government has to do. No, I would differ with that. If at all somebody says everything has to be done by government. The consumption of 135 liters per man, per person, can be brought down to 80 liters, can be brought down to 75 liters. We have to invent ways how we can minimize this consumption. There are plumbing fittings that are available now that will dispense less water for the same job to be done, the same efficiency. And shower heads we are merely using, and we don't know how many liters that just go through the shower head. Probably we have to go back to the ways of bucket and mug. And probably I have tried it myself in the past 2 years that I take my shower with half a bucket and I'm perfectly fine. It's just that, we have to be creative in the sense that, what and all we can do at household level. And communities has greater responsibility here, that we set up measuring instruments so we know how much we are actually consuming. Set up water meters just to know, what we are consuming. Help people get awards for consuming less. In a 200 family community, if somebody consumes less, reward them. It will give us all encouragement. And don't believe that only the municipal corporation water is the water or the borewell water is the water. Every drop of water that is leaving our household as wastewater, bring it back for use. Set up treatment facilities. And also look at sustainable treatment facilities that do not drain your budgets. Setting up is easy. Running is very, very expensive. People don't realize that. So looking at sustainable wastewater treatment plants for communities is very important. This will go a long way. So long as we live here, we need water. So conserving water on one side, treating the water on the other side. Then the third most biggest resource is the rainwater. At community level, we have to have facilities for sure. If they're not there, it's time to look at it. Even at individual level, for every household, even the individual villas or houses, we can do things to store the rainwater and also do the rainwater harvesting. These things really will help at community level, at individual level. Then I would say there are other ways that we waste water. Look at food waste. How much of food do you think you would have wasted during these lockdown times, Manish?
Very rare or limited, given the fact that even the access to food was not definitely as easy as it was earlier. Perhaps you are hinting that we are wasting more than just food. Can you elaborate?
Absolutely. So food is not just food that we are wasting. There are innumerable amount of resources behind the food grains that reach our home. The agriculture itself consumes significant amount of water, and the food processing units take a lot of water. And all these foods are being transported from place to place. In some cases, they are coming thousands of kilometers through the trucks. So we're using the fuels, we're using the water, we're using every other possible resource to bring it to a household where we clean all this, cook all this with water, clean all this with water, and then everything gets completely wasted. It's not just one resource. So it is a time where we are looking at minimalism from a very broader perspective, that every resource that is out there is not our right. Actually, we can buy things with money, but we cannot produce water. It's not possible. Even it's possible, it's very expensive. We can't deal with it. And when I talk about these trucks trailing these, carrying this food from place to place, it is time to think for all of us. Is it wise to transport food from Kashmir to Kanyakumari? How much can we really think that we have to more and more? Actually, this crisis, thanks to Corona crisis, we started looking for really, really local food. And communities also started to think, should we go for aesthetics when we do plantation, or should we go for functional plants? That we can have lemon trees, we can have seasonal fruits rather than flowering trees. I'm not saying that, remove everything and put fruit-bearing trees, but it is time to think the local produce is very important for us to sustain as communities. The lesser and lesser impact that is there on the fuels, I think the longer we will get the resources are out there. I will move to the food waste is connected to the next wastage, that the waste itself, where does all this waste go? We are happily packing it in polythene bags and throwing it in a corner and then thinking that somebody is taking it. But none of us, probably many of us, do not even realize that this is all not going anywhere. It is just sitting outside our corridor. Our corridor may be our city. We are piling huge amounts of these waste into the landfills. And the landfills, if anybody has gone to landfill, we will see what atrocities we are committing to our own land. Unbelievable things in there. So it's not one thing that is connected. The waste today has become a serious issue for the governments. It's going beyond the money, beyond the ability to handle. So it's time that individuals and societies and communities wake up and start to help in some way. All that it takes is segregate it, put the organic waste in organic waste components, and then the plastics and the paper and all the recyclables can go into recyclables, and the electronic waste and the hazardous waste. The moment you remove hazardous waste from the regular waste, you would have saved lives. It is just, I mean, anybody can just go Google it and say, what a landfill look like, watch some videos. We won't be able to probably do the same thing again that, put all the waste into one basket and send it out. So waste segregation at individual level is very important, and communities have to provide for facilities that when the individuals are ready, are encouraged by providing such facilities. So these things, actually, these habits have to cultivate. This crisis has taught us that if we don't wake up now, when would we wake up? And most importantly, anyway, I will defer some of my comments for later. I'm not trying to preach here, but it's time to share that the crisis is just beyond what we are seeing. Maybe Pratima can add something to this.
I think you're doing very well.
Thank
You raised some really, really pertinent points. And I completely agree with you that we really, really need to be thinking of all these aspects now. The next 10, 15 years, as I said, are very, very critical for us to work on all these issues.
Absolutely.
So this question, I'm just drawing the picture that you have painted, and if everyone goes about minimalism, especially in the context of the broader theme of consumption. So what I hear both the panelists say is that the current levels of consumption are just unsustainable. So if that is the case and we go about minimalism, being a finance person, I am very, very scared, because what it means is that it will affect businesses. Your number of people who are unemployed will rise significantly. Our GDP growth will get severely disrupted. And that's not a very economically sound picture that appears to me as a person who is not very clued on to environmentalism as the two of you are. What are your comments on that? Maybe we can start with Ganges, and then maybe Pratima can chip in.
Well, it's a very, very relevant and pertinent question, and it's a common mind that can easily grasp this, that there can be a threat to the current cycle of things. The things are set in a motion, and then you suddenly change your tracks and everything can disrupt. It's a valid thinking, but if we study a little deeper onto these things, I would ask you one question, not to comment on anyone specifically, but just how many of us are buying things because somebody else has to survive? Probably, I have never bought something, except when I have encountered with some kids in the marketplace where they try to sell some flowers, bananas, the handmade things. When they sell it, just out of my emotion that, I need to help these boys, they're not begging, they're selling things, I buy. But other than that, the things that I buy in the supermarket, the things that I buy on the internet, all those things I buy because I feel I need them. More than I didn't think of GDP, I didn't think of anything. I just bought them because I felt I need them and I can afford. But when we all go towards minimalism, the question comes, should I think about everybody else? Or when I think, is it real that is going to affect people? I have a different take on this one. If you look at the population growth in the past 100 years across the globe, in the last 10 years, the recorded average seems to be about 80 to 90 million people being added to the globe. Likewise, the resources that these people would need to survive will also be growing to that tune, which means that every day we are increasing the production, consuming more, getting more things from the nature, things like that. So obviously, it is said, somewhere I heard, to stay where you are, you have to continue to run. That's the case we are. So just to meet this demand, we are expanding, expanding, expanding. Probably when the minimalists, the people who subscribe to minimalism, grow in large numbers, nothing is going to happen overnight. You can't have 7 billion people suddenly adopt minimalism. Even if 10% people were to adopt minimalism, it is not going to hurt a lot. On the other side, if we don't take minimalist approach to life, the point at where we are, looking at all the facts that are coming through, we have abandoned so many places because we ran out of resources. There is a fact that was published sometime last year that about 200 million people will be refugees of bankruptcy of resources. Just because there are no more resources available there, they became refugees and they have to go relocate to a different place with just bare minimum things. So this is not far future. We are talking about, I'm 40-year-old. I don't believe that I'm going to see my 80-year life with the resources that I have today. I'll be very lucky if I can see the same amount of resources available for next 20 years. So we are running towards a situation where the doomsday is not far the way if we continue to consume. So if it is a choice that we want to be sustainable or we want to just meet our comforts today and forget, it's okay. For me, I don't want to harm my present, looking at a future that I don't know of. But if it was the same way, if our elders have thought, we wouldn't have seen these 100-year-old trees. All of them would have gone. I mean, they wouldn't have existed. We wouldn't have seen this many number of water bodies unless they would have attempted those days that these have to be there for future generations. So our farmer generations have done so many things to at least provide for the future generations. And it is our responsibility, moral responsibility, that while we consume what we consume, we certainly have a responsibility for our future generations to make sure these resources are available. If someone asks about the definition of sustainability, that's what it is. Sustainability is about avoidance of depletion of natural resources for future generations while we function in the current times. And I don't see that we are really paying attention to that fact, or not paying enough attention. Neither the governments nor the people. I would not say neither the governments, but there are policies, but how many of what are being encouraged at community level, at individual level? So the fuel that we are merrily using with all our cars and all that, it's going to last only for so much. Then what happens to these vehicles? People are moving towards solar, that's all right, but how much? Anyway, it's a vast subject. So my take on this one is minimalism may not disrupt the economic situation and GDP growth and all that, because there is a continuous growing demand because of the increasing of the population. And I feel once we start following a minimalist route, there will be more social entrepreneur approach to life. That's what I feel. We may be moving more from retail space to social entrepreneurs. There will be a lot of small players who will be doing things on their own that they'll make their lives relevant and make their income, rather than 2% of the people holding 50% of the economy of the world. That's my take. Pratima can surely add. She knows a lot of it herself.
Yes. Pratima, would you like to add to what Ganges has just suggested?
World, even in the present state, there's so much of skewed distribution of resources that I believe that, we must very consciously start striving towards a minimalistic way of living. But that doesn't mean that, economy will collapse. We are going through a temporary phase right now. Everything has received a setback. It might take a few months for, or maybe a year or two for things to get back onto the tracks. But I feel that basically economy and business or ecology are not mutually exclusive. they both equally needed. You need good businesses. I mean, tomorrow, after all, businesses function on demand. Tomorrow, if everybody starts living healthy and says we are going to be, say, off soft drinks, for instance, of course, those kind of businesses may be forced to transform and do something else. Maybe they'll start getting into fruit juices. But I feel that there is a little bit of cause for cheer, because I find in the last 15, 20 years, many businesses have started looking at how can we reuse, recycle, some of these concepts, how can we add value, which is of ecological value to the businesses that we are doing. So I certainly we all move towards a more sustainable way of living, where there's more equitable distribution of resources, and you don't have the kind of poverty that you see, which is just starkly in your face, especially in some of the developing countries. So that's really my take on minimalistic living, and I don't think it will really impact businesses that badly in the long run. They all find a way.
So thanks, Pratima. I think both of the panelists have pointed out what Mahatma Gandhi said many, many years ago, that Earth has enough resources for everybody's need, but it doesn't have enough resources for one man's greed. So we had some very interesting discussion, viewers, on the need for managing our consumption in a way which is sustainable and which is minimalistic by modern standards. And this is something which was ingrained in us through the Indian tradition, where all resources and the relationship between man and nature was that of was a sacred relationship, and it was manifested, or it was symbolized by man experiencing the forces of nature as divine, and not as necessarily something to be exploited. So probably this crisis will sort of make us think to go back to some of the traditional values that we have imbibed, because they are natural, they are derived from natural principles. I hope you had a great time listening, and thanks a lot to both our panelists once again. We now close this session. Thank you, viewers, and thank you, panelists, once again.
Thank you, Manish.
Thank
you. Thank you, Pratima.
So to our viewers, you can know more about Heartfulness or wellness initiatives. And if you have any personal queries, this is the email where you can write to us, and more information about Heartfulness can be provided to you. If you want to connect more deeply with Heartfulness, we have several channels through which this can be done. We have a mobile app channel which uses both iOS and Android. We have Heartfulness practices. Please connect with us through all these 5 channels. We have given you the links, and you are welcome to join us there through these links. We have a series of webcasts which are already placed on our website, and there are more to come. You can connect to all these webcasts through any of these links that we are providing you on this particular screen. Because we also are very deeply connected with the community. We make several attempts to help our community in ways which are not just spiritual. We have a very robust program where currently we are providing for COVID relief fund. Only yesterday, our organization has donated 1.5 crores to the state of Telangana, where we have our headquarters. Please do use our helpline, which is called Voice That Cares. We have a we have a toll-free number which you can dial and know more about meditation. You're also welcome to join us for the universal prayer, which is at 9 p.m. every day. The link is enclosed for you. So thanks a lot once again, and look forward to engaging with all the viewers through our different distribution channels.